This is Tamiya Robles from FixMyCreditNow850.com. I just want to say thank you for patiently waiting. This was a late start, my apologies, but we're on now. So just so everyone knows, I am the owner of FixMyCreditNow850.com. I'm also the founder of a nonprofit organization, a community-based nonprofit organization called The Movement. So if anyone has any questions in regards to that, definitely reach out, let me know. We are currently recording. We're here to talk about the new FICO 10 and the FICO 10T. It is the new scoring module that's out now. We were working off of the FICO 9 every 5 years. I'll get into this a little bit during this segment, but every 5 years they're supposed to release a new scoring system, and that this actually came a little earlier than usual, but we're going to go into it. What we're going to discuss is the consumer credit scoring systems, Vantage versus FICO, the difference between the FICO scores, what FICO scores lenders use, understanding the difference between FICO 10 and FICO 10T, and how it actually affects you as an individual, what they're saying, quote unquote, they're saying about FICO 10 and FICO 10T, my thoughts, solutions that I have, just little recommendations, and if anyone has any questions, there's room for that. So we're not going to get into this too long, but FICO versus Vantage score, what is the difference? So in a nutshell, FICO, what came out first? It was a scoring system, a credit scoring system that came out, I do believe in, I want to say the 60s. And it was basically a way for the lenders to weed out who was credit worthy or not. As time went on, every so often they would basically better, so to speak, the system. It would gear towards the benefit of the companies. So the rules got stricter, what they looked for. They eventually were trying to perfect it, and it determines whether or not you are credit worthy or not. So for all these years, there was no competition. It was just FICO. Then eventually, their only competitor came out, then that's Vantage. So you'll see the difference with the two. I have them both on the screen. So FICO scoring system, it varies. So it can go as low as 300 and as high as 850. And as far as Vantage, it's the same, but what they calculate, their calculations are different. Should you be worried about Vantage score? And again, I'm not going into huge detail when I'm talking about the two, but should you be concerned about the two? It depends on what you're trying to get approved for. Vantage isn't used for mortgages. It can be, it's available for people. A lot of companies have never even heard of Vantage. It's just now starting to get a name for itself. If you are renting and you're looking to rent, because it's a cheaper product for companies than FICO, some companies go with Vantage. But other than that, you have to actually ask the lender if they're going to use FICO or Vantage score. But I'll say 8 times out of 10, the company that you're trying to get a loan from is using FICO. But on the left side, it's just their different scoring methods. When you look at a lot of people, they come to me when they want me to fix their credit. They are looking at Credit Karma, Smart Credit, third-party companies that use Vantage score. Like I stated, it's cheaper than FICO. And they think they have it all together. Like, hey, my score is good. I just need you to fix a few things, and then I can go get a house. But I have to tell them, are you looking at your Vantage or your FICO? Because Credit Karma doesn't use FICO the lender is going to use FICO. So you need to know your real score. And on average, your Vantage score is usually lower than your actual FICO score. So you always want to go, in my opinion, you want to know what both scores are, again, depending on what you're shooting for. Facts. All right, so we're going to just focus on FICO right now. So FICO scores update every 5 years, as I mentioned earlier. So if you look at your FICO, if you go under My FICO, I'm a huge fan of My FICO. That's the only company you can log on to see all of your FICO scores. But if you look at it, it instantly takes you to your FICO 8. A lot of companies, a lot of lenders are using FICO 8. Some people don't even know that we've been on FICO 9 for the past, I think, 2-3 years, right? But FICO 9 is available, but every 5 years, we're supposed to go up in a scoring module. So it's FICO 8, then it's supposed to be FICO 9, which we're actually on, and then FICO 10, naturally, okay? So we're at FICO 10 and FICO 10T. FICO is an independent data analytics company. It's separate from the 3 credit bureaus. So Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion are considered the 3 Bs, meaning 3 credit bureaus. FICO is not a credit bureau. The FICOs, the credit bureaus, they tell you what your FICO score is. These are 2 different or 4 separate companies. FICO is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC. A lot of you guys might be familiar with that. And also the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB. I actually utilize both of these companies when I'm disputing negative items, especially stubborn items. I take it above and beyond, and that would be the FTC and the CFPB. So this chart is basically showing you all the different FICO scores. Believe it or not, they have every scoring module except FICO Classic, which is what some lenders use, some mortgage lenders use. So it looks like it's a lot. It's a little overwhelming, and I'm just going to go over it quickly. So as quickly as I can. And again, if you have any questions at the end, just let me know. So here, like I stated, the most commonly used, let me get my pointer. Let me find my pointer somewhere. But here, what you can see here is the FICO 8. But where we're at now is FICO 8, okay? So FICO 8 is the most commonly used FICO scoring system. As I stated, most likely 99% of the companies are using it right now and really aren't paying attention or aware of the fact that there's a FICO 9, okay? So FICO 9 is used for auto loan applications in a lot of cases. So they use FICO 9, they use FICO 8, and they use FICO 2. Once the numbers are getting low, that means that these are pretty old FICO scoring modules, but you are able to see who still uses them. And as you can see, when you're trying to get a car loan, the auto loan companies, the auto lenders are using the older scoring modules. They're using the new ones and the old ones. And that is basically, in my opinion, for them to see where you're at today and where you were before. But the older the scoring module is, the less forgiving, like the less forgiving it is. And we're going to get into that as well when it comes to your credit scores. We'll get into that. But then Equifax, for example, again, Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion are 3 different companies. They work 3 separate ways. They got their own rules and way of doing things. That's why if you look at your credit score, you might have 3 different credit scores that are drastically different. They are not going to be identical because they work differently. These companies function differently. But again, Equifax, they look at FICO 9, 8, and 5. In TransUnion, they look at 9, 8, and 4. See, there's a difference. The credit card companies, most credit cards companies, they use what is the latest scoring module, which is FICO 9. Okay. At this point, they should start using FICO 10, but as I mentioned, a lot of companies don't really know that FICO 10 exists, which is pretty standard whenever there's a new release of a FICO scoring system. But they use 9, 8, 3, and 2 in certain cases, 9, 8, and 5, excuse me, for Equifax and TransUnion, they use 9, 8, and 4. Now, the best way, because I give people approved for credit cards all the time. And for those that want to do it themselves, and they want to know, like, what do I do? How do I get around this scoring system? There is no way of getting around it, but what you can do is you just simply, you can even Google this information, but let's say you're trying to get an Amex card. You want to know what credit bureau they pull from and what FICO scoring module they're going to use. Okay, if you're trying to get an Apple card and you want to know, they don't always use all 3 credit bureaus. Some use 2, some use 1. Okay, but you need to know, are they using FICO and Vantage? I really don't know any credit card company that's using a Vantage score. So just shoot for FICO, and then you want to know what module they're using. Next, this is pretty big because, again, a huge portion of my clients are trying to get their credit fixed so they can get a home. And then after that, usually it's a car, and after that, it's credit cards, and then a business. But mortgages, your mortgage score, as you can see, mortgage companies use a FICO 2. And as I stated, FICO 2 is pretty old. FICO 5, pretty old. The lower the number, the older the credit scoring system. Now, you do see where it says FICO score 10 suite. I'm going to be honest with you. When I researched this, I'm trying to tell you, I don't know one lender that uses FICO 10 yet. Fannie Mae, I read their release, their statement about whether or not the lenders should use it, and they're not pushing it. Basically, they're stating that lenders are free to use it at their discretion. They don't have to, but they're not going to enforce the FICO 10 for like another 3 years, which is weird because by that time it'll probably be a FICO 11. So, but it just seems like either they don't care, or which is fine, but it's not a big deal to them, which again, it's within their right. They don't have to. All right, so I know people are probably going to have questions about that, which is good, but we're going to continue on. So now we're going to go to the meat and potatoes of this all. This is the newest FICO model, which is FICO 10 and FICO 10T. And I put here intentionally that this was established in 2020. Now, keep in mind what happens in 2020. We were in a pandemic, right? Keep that in mind as we move forward. Now, what they do and what their differences are, it's not that huge of a difference, and we're going to go into it. So the FICO scores it's always the same. Like I said, they're here to basically figure out who's credit worthy or not. And the higher they get in score, the stricter their rules are. Right? They really don't want you to succeed. They don't. The credit is to make is for the rich people and keep poor people down. If you haven't figured that out, that's what I believe. That's what I'm aware of, and I teach that. But FICO 10, it's even better at separating high risk consumers from low risk consumers. So they've gotten better with that. One of the ways that they were able to do that is they were focusing more on credit card debt and whether or not you pay your credit cards down. That's what FICO 10 is focusing on. Not saying that 8, 9, 7, and 6 didn't focus on that, but I'm sorry, there is no FICO 6, 5. I'm not saying that it didn't focus on that, but FICO 10 is taking it drastically serious. They're looking at how you pay down your credit cards, how you use your credit cards, and they're tracking that. And they're going to give you a credit score based off of how you utilize your credit card debt. And again, I'm going to say my opinion on all of this. I'm just giving you the facts for now. Okay. Now, late reports will have more of a negative effect on your credit score more than ever. Being late for anything, having any sort of late payment has always been an issue. That's a big thing. That's normal. You're 30 days late, you're 60, 90 days late, your credit shot. But with FICO 10, a 30-day lateness can literally, I've seen it drop someone's score practically 100+ points, right? So you don't want to have any late payments at all if you can avoid it. And if your credit is already messed up, even though late reports are very difficult to overturn, you want them overturned. I can definitely do that. Fix My Credit Now, A50.com can do it for sure. And I'm going to tell you now, those goodwill letters don't work. Okay, they don't work. You can try, but how about good luck to the goodwill letters? You need to really work hard to get those latenesses returned. Now that's for FICO 10, but FICO 10T, the T stands for trending data. And then other than that, it has the same, there's not much difference. Everything else is for the FICO 10 is similar for FICO T, but what this trending data is doing is it's going back 2 years and it's judging how you are with credit from 2 years ago. And so they're going to give you a credit score based off of how you were 2 years ago, not how you are today. So let me try to clear that up a little bit, right? So for example, it's like you used to be a bad person a couple years ago. Nobody liked you. You didn't like people. You were an introvert. You were very rude and nasty to people, right? And then you eventually got better. You found the Lord. You switched your style up. You became more social. And you just became overall just a likable person, right? And then you reintroduce yourself to the world, but everybody remembers you when you were a negative person. And they're judging you based off of how you used to be, not who you are today. That you found God, you are a better person, you're a happy person, even after all the apologies that you've done and have you patched over a lot of your friendships and said your sorries. They don't care. They're judging you by who you were. That's what FICO 10T is. That is the nicest way I can explain to you what FICO 10T is. That's why I stated that this is a problem. This is a major problem, right? Because we aren't perfect people. A lot of us don't understand credit repair. They didn't teach us this in school. But again, I will save my opinion for later. But that is the difference between FICO 10 and FICO 10T. Now, what are they saying? Okay, so what I mean by they is the same people that are releasing these new scoring systems. So that would be the credit bureaus, that would be FICO, that would be Vantage, that would be the CFPB, the FTC. What they're saying is, hey, don't freak out over this FICO 10 and this FICO 10T. Don't worry about it. Just prepare yourself. Start paying all your bills on time. Don't have any late payments. Pay down on your credit cards. find other ways to boost your credit score and just keep building your credit. That sounds all well and good. And honestly, whether we have a FICO 10, FICO 10T, 8, 9, 7, 5, 4, or 2 or classic, you should be doing that either way. However, that is not going to change your credit score with FICO 10 and the FICO 10C. So these are my thoughts, and this is going to be a bit winded. I'll try to control it, right? But I'm really passionate about this. This is very concerning. It's very alarming. But my thoughts on how to get around this or fix it, whatever, adapt to this new FICO scoring system. Get your credit fixed immediately. And I'm not saying that just because I am a credit expert. I'm not saying that because I have a company and I'm trying to get business. If you do it yourself, fine. If you go with someone else, either way, immediately try to get your credit fixed. Try to have a perfect credit profile to the best of your capabilities. Because if they're going back 2 years now, what do you think they're going to do in the future, right? It's not a good thing. They're judging you on what you used to be, and this is what they came up with. Get rid of your student loan debt. I personally have a program where I can get your student loans either discharged completely in 30 days. I just released a video on how to lower your monthly student loan debt in 30 days. Do something with your student loan debt. Please stop waiting around for Biden. The moment Biden got involved, I knew nothing was going to happen. But a lot of people, they just do what they usually do, and they just figure Biden was going to take them to the promised land, and it hasn't happened yet. Okay, so take care of it yourself. There's so many programs out there where you can get discharged, forgiven, what have you. And like I said, I've discharged student loans as high as $600,000, and not just once or twice. I've done it regularly. I just got a new client where I have to discharge her student loans. It's just what I do. But get rid of those student loans, get rid of that debt, because what's going on is since the pandemic, everybody was in deferred status. It looked amazing. It looked great. They cleared out all your negative latenesses from 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and it looks picture perfect. Everything comes to an end. The reason why they did that was to give you an opportunity to catch up on your payments, but people never did that. What people were doing was just riding off the fact that their student loan was in deferment, enjoying this free ride, but it has to end. I left a post up in my group, one of my groups, Credit and First Time Homebuyers Club, and an article basically states that Congress stepped in with this student loan deferment. They can't really forgive people at the moment, and the deferment is going to end at some point. It's either going to go one way or the other. It's going to go in favor of the consumer, or it's not going to go in favor of the consumer or the student. Either way, it has to end. And when it ends, everything is going to revert back to what it was when they first put the deferment on, right? So if you did work on your credit and you've bettered your credit profile from the time of the deferment till now, and everything was good, and they stop the deferment and they revert everything back, what do you think is going to happen to your credit score, right? If you've built yourself up to a 650, a 750, a 850, and you did nothing to your student loan debt, now everything's going to go back how it was, and then your scores are going to drop, and now you have to figure out how to get rid of those student loans. So get rid of them. Ask lenders the right questions. I'm really big on that. Okay, I found my pointer, by the way. Ask lenders the right questions. All right, what are the right questions? So we'll take mortgage lenders, for example, right? So usually you have your real estate agent, you have your mortgage lender, but then you have the underwriter. It's the underwriter you need to actually speak to, but as we know, you'll never talk to the underwriter. So ask your lender all of the questions that you need to ask. If they don't know, they should be asking the underwriter. So you need to ask them, what FICO system do you, what scoring system do you use? Do you use Vantage or do you use FICO? And are you using FICO 10? Are you using Vantage 4.0, 3.0? Are you using 10T? Are you using Classic? Are you using a mixture of it? Which credit bureau are you looking at, right? So these are the questions that you need to ask, for example, and they should be able to give you an answer. Now, if they give you an attitude or they're frustrated, more than likely, they don't know what you're talking about and you sound more educated than them and they don't like that, but that's fine. Just give them time to regroup and send them to my page or something and they can get educated on the differences. But usually that's something an underwriter can answer. So if they're getting frustrated, just say, I know you may not know, but could you please ask your underwriter? The underwriter will be able to tell you exactly which scoring module they use and if they're using FICO 10, FICO 10T, but I guarantee you, I would be very shocked if anyone is using a FICO 10T as far as the mortgage industry is concerned. Same thing with the car dealership. If you're trying to get a car, they're not looking at a FICO 10T. If, as we all know, if you purchased a car, they just love taking your social security number, running it through the trenches 20, 30 times, putting all those inquiries on. They're not looking at a 10T. They're not going backwards in time. They're more than likely looking at exactly what the chart said. FICO 9, FICO 5, and I think a FICO 8. So you should be good. If you're trying to get an apartment, like I mentioned earlier, they're looking at Vantage 4.0 in some cases, but 4.0 Vantage is identical to FICO 10. So, you know, but whoever is using FICO 10 and you're looking at a rental company, they're not going deeper than that. So they'll just look at whatever's on your score. But again, a lot of people don't even know that the FICO 10 exists or the Vantage 4.0 exists. The major thing, again, this is my opinion, is you've got to start a new business and you have to get business credit. Again, I am not just saying this because this is what I do for people. I create businesses for people all the time. My job is to create a business and to fund your business, right? But get educated first. I have plenty of free everything on my group page, on my YouTube, on my website, but you have to work quickly and you have to educate yourself, cross over to the business side. Business credit and personal credit are two different scenarios, two different ways of life. The FICO 10T and all these crazy changes are not happening on the business side. They don't care about your utilization. They actually encourage you to have high utilization on your credit cards. When you can actually transfer your debt from the personal side to the business side and just kind of almost have like a new life, right? Where you don't have to worry about this craziness of the FICO 10 and the FICO 10T. The FICO 10T is the only scoring module that they've ever had that goes back in time, right? And not to keep going on and on, but I'm recording this and I know this is going to reach a lot of people. So it's going to help somebody, but I did tell you guys to put a pin in it. I wanted you to put a pin in the fact that I stated that the FICO 10 and the FICO 10T was established in 2020. And I asked you, what happened in 2020? 2020 is when the pandemic hit. Technically, it was 2019, right? But we're going to say it was 2020. In 2020, the pandemic hit and there were a lot of deaths, right? And they were honing in on a lot of deaths. And just rock out with me. I am going to put my tinfoil hat on. However, being a credit repair specialist, I saw this coming so far in advance. What happened is, yes, there were a lot of deaths, but what was going on with the housing market? Does anybody even remember that? the housing market got way different. You were able to purchase homes. I'm not a realtor and I'm not a lender, but even I purchased a home during the pandemic with an amazing interest rate. My interest rate was so low. Houses, I was in a position to purchase a beautiful home. A lot of people who wouldn't have been able to purchase a home prior to the pandemic, which is, I hate to say it, lower income individuals, minority individuals, were now in a position where they could purchase a home with an amazing interest rate, right? People were dying, the world was dying, the world was getting gravely sick. Unfortunately, my own mother passed away during the pandemic because of it, because of COVID, but yet people were buying houses. People were stuck in the house. And when you're stuck in the house and you're stuck doing something, you tend to do things that you don't typically do, like read and educate yourself. And if you can recall, a lot of people took this time out to fix their credit, to educate themselves and fix their credit, right? So now we got people sitting at home, that the ones that aren't sick, or even those that are sick, and because they're sick, they have to stay home, right? They're educating themselves about credit, their finances, budgeting. Some people got fired from their jobs, furloughed, whatever you want to call it. I say let go. They got fired from their jobs. And again, they had to find another stream of income. They became credit repair specialists, whatever the case. That's what was going on. They bettered their financial situation. They bettered their credit score. They're able to purchase a house. They're able to get a car. I don't know if you recall, during the pandemic, they were practically, the car dealerships were basically giving cars away. And then they ran out of cars. That has nothing to do with credit, but you could get a nice car fairly cheap, right? Then magically I was fixing someone's credit, and I think it was like December. And I saw a FICO 10, and I'm like, what's a FICO 10? I didn't hear anything on the streets about FICO 10. I didn't see any articles about FICO 10. And then I also noticed that the person's credit score dropped 100 points because I was working on their credit. And then it disappeared, right? So I knew very early on that something of this magnitude was coming. I didn't know about the FICO 10T. I wasn't aware of that, but I did see the FICO 10, and I did see what it was capable of doing, dropping a person's score. That was pretty major. So I knew it was coming. Now, again, the FICO 10, they should have just left it as a FICO 10, but the FICO 10 came out earlier than it was supposed to. It hasn't been 5 years since FICO 9 was released. It's been about 3.5 years. So why are they so quick to release this FICO 10? And why did they do a FICO 10T for the very first time? Keep in mind, remember what I stated, they are trying to figure out who is credit worthy. So if a lender is using a FICO 10T and they choose to, that means they don't care what your score looks like right now. They care about what it used to look like 2 years ago, and that was during the pandemic. I see it on Facebook too. All right, so let's pretend you log on to my FICO, and this is your credit score. So as you can see, it's starting you off on FICO score 8, right? Again, this is the most commonly used. A lot of people don't know FICO 9 exists. And this is a fairly decent credit score, believe it or not. 658 is fair, right? 690 is good. It's not excellent, but it's good. This person can get a lot of things with this credit score. And a 672 is good as well, right? And if you click on the mortgages, it's going to show you which credit scoring systems they use. As I stated, they use 5, 4, and 2. Look at the difference in the scores. Now she went from being good here. Now she's fair across the board. It dropped. 5, 4, and 2 is less forgiving than the higher scoring modules. All right. Now we're going to go backwards and we're going to try, let's say we're looking to get a car. You see, they're looking at the score 8, score 9, 5, 4, and 2. Look what happened to her credit score. Now remember, she initially with Equifax, this person was fair, but now went from fair to good and is good across the board. And actually the numbers are pretty high. She's practically at a 700. That's with a score 8. If that car dealership looks at her FICO 9, this is what they're going to see. She does get to the 700s, right? But if they look at the FICO 5, 4, and 2, remember I stated they're less forgiving. So the scores drop. Now we're going to go back and let's say we are trying to apply for a credit card. I'm getting to the FICO 10. Hold on to your horses. Trust me, I'm just trying to make a point here. And depending on what credit card company you're going for, they're gonna look at, this is where you're at, FICO score 8, widely used, FICO score 9, widely used, right? And look at the credit score. Good, it's good, it's good. But if they look at 9, see how Experian dropped, practically at a 700. And then they have this additional FICO 9 score called a bank card score. It's self-explanatory. It's strictly for the credit cards, the banks and the credit cards, right? So if they want to use either the FICO 9 or the FICO bank card 9, that's up to them. That's why I said you have to ask these banks. You have to ask your lender, what are you using? You have to ask questions. This is your life. This is your credit. This is your future. This is your money. And if they want your business, they need to answer the questions. And if they don't know, you ask somebody who does know, or ask to speak to someone who does know. Now, this is a FICO bank score, a bank card with the scores of 5, 4, and 2. Remember, less forgiving. Now, how did we get from 700 in certain cases? We're practically in 500s now. Look, 604. And now FICO score 3, we didn't even talk about it. This is how old the FICO score 3 is. Nobody uses it, but clearly Experian is holding on. These bureaus are not your friends, keep in mind. So you guys have to understand what's going on, what's happening, and what you're going to do about it. You got to have a solution to your problem because they don't. Okay. Now we're in the magical world of the FICO score 10 and 10T. And if you look closely, they gave me, I told you about the 10T, but they got a FICO auto score 10. They got a FICO bank card 10. So we're going to see what it does. So if this person decided to try to get some credit somewhere, a loan somewhere, whatever, on her personal side, and this company that she's going for is looking at a FICO score 10, this is what they're going to see. Not bad. There's no fair. It's pretty much straight across the board. Now, if she goes to a company that uses a FICO 10T, look what happened to her score. Look what happened. They went from good, almost excellent, to being fair. And I hate to break the news that fair is not really getting us as far as it used to before the FICO 10T came out and the 10 came out. But you see the difference. The FICO 10, oh my gosh, you're amazing, we love you. FICO score 10T, you're all right. That's basically what it's done. Now let's see what this FICO auto score does. You're back to being good again. Again, the auto dealerships, they're different. They just want the basics. They're just trying to get rid of the car because guess what? You're going to be in debt anyway because cars don't appreciate in value. They depreciate, but that's a whole other topic of conversation. But they want you. They're going to look at the best of you. And then we'll look at the FICO bank card 10, score 10. Look at that. It's like, you're all right, you're amazing, you're okay. Like that's it. I'm speaking in metaphors so I can connect to a bunch of you. I'm big on education. If you have any questions or if you're confused about something, just reach out before you make a decision. I encourage people to do that as well. But in the meantime, thank you for attending. I appreciate it. I will edit this and repost this everywhere. And in the meantime, you guys have a great